The other option that you had for homework was to practice an LEQ. And we really suggested that if you were taking the paper and pencil exam that's coming up pretty soon, that you practice the LEQ. And the prompt you see there was to evaluate whether Napoleon Bonaparte supported or undermined the main goals of the French Revolution during his rule of France. So again, we're going to kind of show you some nice examples. This was from Carrie, another yellow jacket. It's weird. We had multiple yellow jackets today. Carrie's from Blue Ridge High School in Arizona. And Carrie started off with context that throughout the 18th century, philosophers developed ideas about human life and government based on reason during the Age of Enlightenment. Philosophers like John Locke and Montesquieu advocated for the voices of the masses to be heard by protecting natural rights to Locke and the separation of powers in government with Montesquieu. The French Revolution was initiated by the Third Estate in 1789 as a result of its needs being ignored by the First and Second Estates at the Estates General Meeting. Members of the Third Estate, which made up the majority of the population, were far poorer than the clergy and the nobility of the First and Second Estates, respectively, yet alone bore the responsibility of paying taxes with no great representation in the French government. The French Revolution aimed to bring about a voice to the previously ignored masses of France, like peasants and rural laborers. So we've got context, and that context is definitely relevant to this question about whether Napoleon furthers or does not the French Revolution's main goals. So now we're moving into the actual answer, the claim or thesis. Despite the Napoleonic Code or civil code that protected property rights and other rights of mainly middle-class citizens, right? And then it's a little bit disjointed, but it does a really nice job. We go back, we're going to skip to the rest of the yellow. Napoleon Bonaparte undermined the main goal of the French Revolution to give everyone a voice in an institution that governed their way of life. And then the line of reasoning was there in the pink, because he limited the freedom of speech and elections and took away the rights gained by women during the previous years of the revolution. So it's a little bit disorganized as far as the line of reasoning is kind of in the middle, but it's definitely there. And it's a really nice job as giving us context and thesis points. So very good job, Carrie. We've got the line of reasoning, we've got the claim, and we have a evidence-rich contextualization paragraph. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, right. Great job, Carrie.
And then for our using the evidence to support an argument, of course, unlike the DBQ, the evidence has to come from historical knowledge. And this was Caitlin from the Bishop's School, they're the Knights. And I know the handwriting is a little bit hard, but I wanted to remind you that the pencil and paper exam is a handwritten test. And we're quite adept at reading all of your handwriting. So if you follow along with me, this is the beginning of the paragraph where Caitlin's going to use evidence. So starts off, furthermore, the French had wanted natural rights as seen in the Declaration of the Rights of Man. They hoped to achieve such freedoms. However, Napoleon is infamously known to have limited the freedom of the French people by taking away the freedoms of speech and press. He did this to keep his power stable, but it shows how greatly he undermined that ideal. So again, at the end of that paragraph there, I probably should have put that in pink because Caitlin does bring that fact back to her argument about Napoleon not supporting the ideals of the French Revolution, but then goes on for another piece of evidence. Furthermore, he is also known for curtailing the rights of women. Though women were not supported in gaining full natural rights, Napoleon took back some rights they had gained in the French Revolution. This regression of natural rights further emphasizes Napoleon's empty support towards this idea. So Caitlin was able to give us some historical evidence about Napoleon's taking away freedom of speech and the press, about Napoleon taking away rights of women, and then link that back to an argument about Napoleon not supporting those ideals of the French Revolution. So that's using evidence and clearly linking that back to supporting an argument, remembering that there's 2 points for using evidence. And in order to get the 2 points, you have to be really intentional about supporting the argument with your evidence and not just putting the evidence on the paper. So Caitlin did a really nice job with that. Good job.
We're going to talk about analysis reasoning, and this is for the long essay question. And this is the D category, and there are 2 points available to you. The first point is when you use reasoning, use historical reasoning when you frame or structure your argument that addresses the prompt. So historical reasoning is, are you comparing things, similarities and differences? Are we talking about cause-effect relationships? Or are we talking about continuity and or change over time? So when you frame or structure your argument and it addresses the prompt, you're going to earn a point. Okay, and then we'll get to complexity here in a minute. So the reasoning skill of this prompt is causation. Specifically, the prompt is asking about the effects of Napoleon's rule on the ideals of the French Revolution. Okay, so we begin. This is responses from Anna from Oakville Senior High School in St. Louis, Missouri. They are the Tigers. It begins, Napoleon Bonaparte undermined the main goals of the French Revolution because he eliminated democracy and limited personal rights. So right away, this thesis, now I know this is the thesis, and they're going to get a separate thesis point. I'm not making the claim that this thesis alone is the reasoning point, but the thesis helps us see how Anna is going to approach this. And so the thesis frames the primary argument with causative factors. And then it continues, although it could be argued that the French Revolution also had an oppressive regime that bypassed democracy when it became too difficult with the establishment of the Committee of Public Safety, even if that was not the goal of the revolution. So I'm going to tell you that the paragraph structure that Anna gave of the entire response is consistent with framing causation. And that's where Anna would earn the point, because each paragraph is talking about causation or effects of Napoleon's rule. That's how we get at that first reasoning point. And then what Anna did here, the response also sets up to demonstrate later complexity, because we've got this qualifying argument in her introduction, okay? So the point comes from how the whole body of the essay is framed at getting at the causes, okay? And this is to eliminate the idea that a kid just gets this prompt, says, oh my gosh, I know a ton about Napoleon, and just starts writing without any reasoning evident in the response, okay? And then we'll get at this one from complexity. This response is from Dayanara, Logan High School in Logan, Utah. They are the Grizzlies. Although Napoleon supported the main goals of the French Revolution during his rule in France, he also undermined it by reversing the advances that women had made in the revolution. So Dayanara's primary argument was Napoleon supported the main goal, that he also undermined it. Also, he supported is her primary argument, and that undermined is the secondary argument. And it continues, he established a paternalistic society where women were in need of a male relative or husband to exert natural rights that had been given to males easily. This undermined the revolution by failing to provide the same equality he had given to men to women. So this is a separate paragraph. Later on, it's like the third body paragraph of the essay, and we're showing this complex relationship of the evidence. It's not as simple as one thing only, and that would definitely earn the point. So it demonstrates a complex understanding of the historical development of the prompt, because it's going to qualify the argument.